That's really good, actually. And you know what? And this is why it's important to actually talk to people, potential users.
Today we are talking to Sinazo Bogicevic. Did I get that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah, no,
Maybe
it's perfect.
I'll let you say the name as you normally pronounce it.
So, my name is Sinazo Bogicevic.
Bogicevic. Okay, I knew I got something wrong there. And what is the startup that you're working on?
So, I'm working on a startup that's called Data Hokage. Where
And
basically what I do is I mine reviews from different review sites. So think Capterra, Trustpilot, Product Hunt. And then I take those reviews and I put them through AI where I analyze to sort of see the trends. So for example, what do people like the most? What they don't like? What features are they asking for? Etc.
okay. And what stage are you at right now?
So currently I'm at the building stage. I built up a wait list. I think we are just over 200 people at this point. And so I plan on releasing the app just after Easter.
Are you doing coding it yourself or using some no code or AI
So
to actually build the software?
I mean, so fortunately, I am a developer, so I am building it myself. But and say the one really cool thing now is because of the AI, I'm able to build much faster. So it's myself. I like to think of the AI as my junior developer, right? So
Okay.
I'm working with the AI to build as quickly as I can.
Okay. Before we get any
Mhm.
further, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Krish, and I'm starting this new channel to help entrepreneurs. You want to make your voice heard. You want to make as much noise about your own startup, your own basic, and even when it comes to pitching, you want to have your message across. That's what I'm trying to do. And today we'll be talking to Sinazo, and we'll explore her startup and maybe also her needs and find ways to hopefully our viewers can also reach out and pitch in where however they can. I understand that you're from South Africa and actually lived near South Africa in Botswana. I've visited South Africa many times. I've had the pleasure to go to Durban, Cape Town, quite a few places, some beautiful places. And yeah, that was my childhood memories. So please tell us about, first of all, what's the startup scene like in South Africa nowadays?
So to be fair, I don't have experience with the South African startup scene.
Hmm.
So I can't really give you too much details. My previous co-founder was in South Africa as well.
Right.
Um, I would say I think things are promising. I'm seeing a lot of startups that are coming from South Africa.
Hmm.
I'm seeing a lot of startups actually not just from South Africa, but those that start in other African countries, then coming to South Africa. Because from what I see, it feels like there's more potential there. And
Is
even
it a bit
in
of
getting,
a is it a bit of a hub for in Southern Africa at least for
I
startups
would say so, right? I know even with the government, especially in Cape Town, they really are pursuing becoming the Silicon Valley in Africa.
in Africa? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of talent. That's for sure. And yeah, so I remember coming across a few companies like Nasper, for example, is one of the big tech companies out there, right? Yeah, so I've come across a few. So I was working as a business analyst for a healthcare startup, and we were reaching out to vendors, and we had a couple of them from South Africa, and working in AI as well. So there's quite a few leading tech companies out there. And so tell us about your journey, and I understand you have a technical background, and you had a previous startup as well. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think I should really start from the beginning,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't start off going and getting like a CS degree. It actually starts off with me going to university to become like a corporate lawyer. Me
Okay.
realizing that this is not for me. This is incredibly boring. Then I get the opportunity to go to Dubai, where I work as a lifeguard.
Hmm.
And then eventually I move here to Serbia, right? And so the challenge I find in Serbia is that when I come here, I don't speak the language, which
Right.
means my best chance of getting a job is working from home, right? Work from home. This is before COVID, before it was a thing. And so I start looking for work, and I sort of realize that most of these jobs that I'm seeing are in tech. I don't know what a back end developer is. I don't know what a front end developer is. I have no idea. But clearly, these jobs are in demand. So then I start learning. I remember I started with edX, which is on edX. Yes, edX. I started with that. Then eventually I found YouTubers, articles. So I'm self-taught, right? I never went to
Okay.
school. I'm self-taught. And it became very clear to me because I knew that I always wanted to do my own thing, that my best bet was become a developer, work for startups, which is exactly what I do. I've
Mhm.
only ever worked for startups on purpose. I was very
Right.
intentional with that because I knew that with a startup, I would learn a lot more outside of being a developer. And so that when I was ready to do my own thing, I'd have at least a little more skill and understanding. And so last year, I finally decided to do that. After my company laid basically most people off, I decided, okay, this was the time. I worked on a healthcare startup. Unfortunately, it became very clear within that year that we were not going to make it, right? Health is like really difficult to get into. And so at the beginning of this year, I had a team. I was not solo then, I'm solo now. Sat down with the team and decided, look, this is not going to work out. It's better for us to just take it as a lesson learned, right, in our journeys going forward. And so once I stopped working on Leafa, which was in January, I'm sort of trying to figure out, well, what do I do now?
Sorry, what
Um,
was your health startup about?
so it had to do with EHRs. So an EHR is your healthcare record,
Mhm.
your digital health record. And the idea was that we would make them smart records. So imagine a record that you could actually interact with, one
Right.
that would follow you wherever you went. I mean, it's such a great idea. Doctors loved it, nurses loved it, whoever was in healthcare. But again, because of sort of the regulation and the rules surrounding
That
that,
was in
it's not
Serbia.
that easy.
Sorry, was that in Serbia as well?
So we were targeting Serbia, South Africa initially. So yeah, so stopped working on that. And then I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I do now? And so I started doing research, trying to think of other ideas. And one of the things I would do is I would come up with an idea, I'd make a list of competitors, whatever that idea was, right? And then I'd go on the review sites to see what people were saying. So I could sort of get an idea of, well, if I do pursue this, sort of how do I position myself in this market? And I realized, wait a minute, this is taking a long time. Surely I could automate this to make it faster for myself. And that's where Data Hokage came from. It came from me going, well, let me just solve my own pain point. Yeah, and that's what I've been doing. I've been working on Data Hokage since, gosh, it's already April. I'd say since I think I had the idea around end February, and about say 3 weeks ago, 3 to 4 weeks ago, that's when I put out the wait list. So my idea was because last year when we worked on Lifa, that's what the healthcare was called. When I worked on Lifa, we built first before we actually had people willing to use our app. Whereas this time, my idea was I'm not going to build anything. I'm not going to write a single line of code until I have proof that people are willing and they are interested in what I'm actually building now. And so once I sort of went to over 100 people on the wait list, I went, okay, I think now I can actually start building. And so I was actually also shocked when I realized, oh my gosh, we're about to go to 200. So yeah, this time it seems to be going quite well.
So when it comes to validation without an MVP, so there's different
Mhm.
levels of validation that you can do, right? So I have, for example,
Yeah.
done past like mailing list and things like that. One of the
Mhm.
things I found was mailing lists they kind of decay. So if you don't engage with the mailing list, then after some time you might find
True.
just 5% of people respond or something like that. So again, there's different kinds of validation. What kind of validation did you do? Did you speak to people, get a verbal or like expression of interest?
So in what I did was I hung out on very specific subreddits.
Mhm.
Same with X, right? And I would post sort of my journey or maybe share part of what problem the app actually solves, right? And then people would reach out to me and they'd ask to please be added to the wait list, or they would just ask questions, right? And eventually become interested. And you are right. The thing with a wait list is that if you just sort of have people put in, because I'm only taking people's emails and then you never interact with them again, the likelihood is that by the time you launch, they would have lost interest. They're no longer invested. So this is why I actually do send update emails. And so far, I mean, the open rate, because I can only base it on that, is quite good, right? I'm getting something like 60% something open rate, which I think is quite good. And I'm still getting people today signing up.
But what I've done in the past is start a small newsletter, just a blurb or
Mhm.
something, then keep in that industry, so you can
Mhm.
provide some value within in a different way, and that way people get to see some of your insights as well. And then in between, you can also provide some updates as well, and they'll be looking forward to the when you launch. So that might be something
No, you're
that's
completely
worth,
right.
yeah. But again, that's effort as well, right?
No, no, this is the thing. This is sort of the mistake. I think especially if you are a technical founder, right? We tend to make the mistake of putting things, because that is part of marketing. You sort of put marketing to the side. You tell yourself, I'll get to it later, right? What you are referring to me is vital. I actually do have a plan to do exactly what you're saying. I've already started very slowly on X, but I'm gonna do the same thing on LinkedIn as well. And like you said, the emails that I have where I am providing value, right? So it's not always that I'm selling the product to you, but I'm providing value so that I stay top of mind.
I think that's important because they get to see a bit of you, and then they look
Exactly.
forward to more of that. And so I'm also an artist, and one of the things that there's a reason why I'm digressing. One of the things about art is that people don't pay the millions of dollars for the art necessarily. They want a piece of the artist. They want something by the
Exactly.
artist. So same thing with with a startup. You're creating something, and what they're buying into is what is the insight that you're providing. So in some sense,
That is very
especially at the early stage, because it's all about the team, it's all about the founder. Earlier when we spoke, you mentioned that in your first startup you had a team, but in this time you're going solo. Is there a specific
Mhm.
reason why you're doing that? Is
Definitely, right? And this has nothing to do with the team itself. I mean, they were an amazing group of people. I learned so much from them and they brought so much value to the team. But I sort of realized, at least in my case, that I think a big part of why I thought I needed a team was, to be honest, I was insecure, right? I was scared. I didn't believe that I alone could actually be successful. And so I realized, and the thing is, once you have a team, making decisions becomes harder because you sort of have to, it's not you alone. You have to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And so now and it's not to say I don't want a team in future, but my plan currently is, look, let me figure out for myself what this journey looks like, right? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What role do I play in this? But I mean, it's also really practical in the sense that because I'm alone, it means I make the decisions, right? If it fails, it's on me. If it succeeds, it's on me. And then when the time comes to hire people, because eventually I do want to do that, then I know exactly what to look for in those people, right? Because I'm technically I can judge you on that, right? On the technical stuff. But when it comes to things like marketing and sales, because I'd never done that, I'm just going to be happy that you replied, right? Whereas now, since I have the actual experience, I can judge you on whether or not you'd be a good fit.
right. There's always pros and cons with the team. I've tried different experiments with a team and by myself, and there's always pros and cons because every team is different, each person is different, the dynamics are different. And if you get a really good team, that's the best, of course. Because
Yeah,
you can bounce ideas off each other, and there has to be good energy. But it's
exactly.
again, yeah, if sometimes you just have to go it by yourself, especially in the beginning. That's I think that's just your circumstances.
Yeah.
So yeah, so where are you at the in the journey right now? What is it looking like right now?
I mean, so currently, I'm at the building phase. So, like I said to you before, I'm hoping to, no, not hoping, the plan is to launch after Easter's.
So you're very close to launching.
Yeah. And I think like most technical people is I've had to learn to not over-engineer what I'm building, right? Because we have a tendency to want to build it to perfection.
Absolutely.
And because perfection doesn't exist, it means we keep building these features that no one really asked for. So my focus this time was, look, just focus on the core. Get it out there, see what people have to say, and then keep iterating
Right.
and share the journey, right? I'm really big now on sharing the journey.
Actually, I'm keen to explore what you have cut out because this
Mhm.
is, I think, always the case that when you're building something, you want to add more, and it's a discipline you have to really, really apply to trim it down to the bare minimum. How have you done that? Is there something that you've done to minimize or focus on the core?
I think for me, and you're right? When you say it's really difficult to do, and it's something that you have to keep doing. So I won't say that it's something now and that I'm really good at. Often what I'll do is I'll look and I'll go, is this an extra that without it, the app will function, right? Like today, because like I said to you, I was working on this before we jumped on our call. I was working on a feature, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe I should add just one more site for people to scrape the data and then analyze. And then I went, for now, let's not add one more, right? The ones that we have are enough. If enough people are asking where they're going, hey, actually, it would be really nice if I could get data from this website, then we add it. So, for example, I had someone reach out to me. They're in the crypto space, and they were saying, because I'm in this space, it would be a lot more helpful for me if you would add these websites, right?
Right.
And so I replied to him and I said, you know what? Let me do that for the coming version, but not for this version, right? Because the
Right.
first version, I just want to see, is this solving anything for
If
anyone? Is
if
it
people are
useful to
yeah, if people are reaching out for new features, that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is a good
So
thing,
yeah,
right? It is a
if
really good thing.
you can have a website with your roadmap, and that's great. Then that's shouldn't hopefully that should yeah. Or if you have a Discord channel or something like that where you can provide some feedback or some ETA on where things are when things are coming, then that would be fine, I think.
Yeah, actually, I might actually really do that. Plus,
Right.
it would mean instead of because right now what I'm doing is I'm individually replying to people,
Mhm.
whereas I think if it's somewhere where you can just go and see
Yeah.
and it's
Or
accessible, I think that's really
a
good.
little FAQ would be sufficient for that, I think. Yeah. But I think really for me it was always a challenge to really cut it down to the again, it depends on what you're building.
Yeah,
For example, one of the websites that I was building earlier, it was kind of specialized events, but some tools to manage those interactions. And depending on the type of event, we'd have different tools. And then I wanted to support more and more type of events
yeah,
off the bat, and it was growing way too much. But yeah, again, really focusing on what is the core, what you're testing, because you have basically there's a premise that you're testing. Is this something that is
exactly.
valid in the marketplace? You can change that in the future, but you have to start with one or two questions and then just really, really hammer that. Um, what is the next? What is the thing that you need right now?
The
If you're
thing that I
doing it
need right
solo,
now,
yeah,
yeah, I would say, I mean, yeah, because when you're doing it solo, especially because I don't have a background in things like marketing for me, and not just for me, because I often have people reaching out to me on social media like Reddit, LinkedIn, it doesn't matter where. I have a lot of people reaching out and going, how do I find my first users? Where do I find my first users? How do I use social media to gain traction? And honestly, I'm asking myself the same questions, right? And so I think for me, that is the biggest challenge. I can build, right?
right.
Whatever it is,
So
I can build
can
it.
you are you able to share like do a screen share of your the product? Is there something that you can demo right now?
Not really demo because I'm working on the back end. I still don't have the actual visuals. I've just been working on the API.
Okay.
But what I can do,
Or perhaps you can, if someone wants to reach out, what is the problem? Once more, you can state what is the problem that you're solving? Who is it for?
okay. I mean, I do have a screenshot that I could share,
Yeah,
if that's okay.
I can stick it in later.
Okay, that's fine. So basically the idea is that for your indie founder, your solo founder, your early stage startup, right? It's really difficult for us to validate our ideas. And so the idea behind Data Hokage is that there are people already in that space who validated the idea for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those reviews, right? It's thousands of reviews. We're going to take those reviews, we're going to analyze them, and using those, we're going to figure out what is it that people actually want, right? So we're not spending time anymore building things that no one is ever going to use.
Right. Okay, I'm just putting up the screenshots for the market report. Okay, so I want to discuss something that the value of a product or a service changes over time. So if you look at horses for transportation, they would have been much more valuable 200 years ago. So when the review is provided is important. Another factor would be where the review is coming from, because there are different requirements in different places, and products will also be in different stages of the product adoption curve. So both when and where the reviews are coming from are important. So there are a lot of factors that come into play, and I'm just wondering how you might take that into account.
So geographically, no, but we do take into account trends,
Okay.
right? So we do actually look at trends. I do also segment the data I'm getting into like different market sizes, or let's say business sizes, because this is what I look at. I also take a look at different industries. Also look at different industries. So there is some level of looking at what the market is showing you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually quite keen to look into this. I'm looking into some ideas in the EV space, so I would be interested in trying out your product to do some validation. It is geographically restricted, so as a potential user, it would be good if you include or consider the geographic variable in the reviews. Because there's something that would be useful in Botswana, where I live, would be very different from the US.
True,
Where I'm living in Australia, for example, is a very different market from India.
true.
Every major company is already there. A lot of products are, they often use that as a staging ground before they go to another
Mhm,
area. So Australia is quite saturated, whereas India is
mhm,
lagging. In some areas, it lags far behind. In some areas,
mhm.
it's further ahead. So it really, it's a big factor. Um, and of course, the age as well, the time when that particular data point was provided, that's also important, I think. I think that off the top of my head, that's the two probably the most important things, but there may be other as
That's
well.
actually that's really good, actually. And you know what? And this is why it's important to actually talk to people, potential users, because this is something, especially now looking at it, because just like you, because I've lived in South Africa and now I live here, already I know in my head there's certain things that would work here that are not going to work in South Africa. Certain things that work in South Africa would never work here. So yeah, I'll
Driving
definitely be making
driving
a
a
big note
car
of
driving a car in India is very different from driving a car in the US. I want to do a call out. So if there's anything that you are interested in, for example, getting more validation, people can reach out to you. Maybe we'll provide your details in the video as well as in the description, and perhaps you can provide that to me later, and I'll share that as well. What is it that you would like me to cover in a future video? What that would help you?
I mean, I think it goes back to the struggle that I was referring to, which
Mhm.
is a lot of people like myself, when you come from a technical background, for us, the struggle really does have to do with things like marketing, sales, right? So maybe if you could also focus on people who can answer those questions, or maybe you yourself, because you do have experience, is how do I get my first few users? How do I actually validate this? And not just because a lot of people will give you very generic answers, like go to where your people are. What do you
No,
mean by that?
yeah, going to where the customers are, it's of course always good, but identifying that is sometimes a challenge.
Yeah.
Even in places like Reddit, often they don't like people promoting. Some of the subreddits don't like people promoting. So I have some ideas around that, and so maybe I will touch on that.
Mhm.
What about
Yeah, that would be
what about on the technical side? Is there anything that you need on the technical side?
So for me, not necessarily. So the reason I would say not as much is just because now with AI, questions that used to take a really long time, now I can solve them really quickly, right? Because I can
Okay.
just, for example, I use Cursor, so I can just get Cursor to sort of look in at where the code is going wrong. Right? Whereas before, I used to have to go to Stack Overflow and then eventually go to GitHub, see what people are saying. So now it's a lot faster.
So yeah, I guess we'll wrap up here. First, so Sinazo, it was great having you here, and I hope we can bring you back for an update in a couple of months' time and see where you
Yeah,
are
definitely.
at that time. And if anything you need, please feel free to reach out. I'll share you my details as well, and hopefully we can get somebody who can help you with the sales side of things as well.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thanks. And thank you for having me. This was like a really nice conversation.